Okay, now you are saying only local church should baptize. What about the baptism of Ethiopian eunuch, right? That is the common question that are being asked. What about the Ethiopian eunuch? Standing against the suggestion here made that water baptism is an entry right into local church is the anomalous story of the Ethiopian eunuch, who, after a brief evangelistic encounter with Philip, converted and submitted to baptism apart from any, look at this one, local church context. There are reasons, however, to view this incident as something less than normative. Let's dive into some of the details. First of all, in Acts chapter 8, this passage, I say here, it is a descriptive passage. Acts 8 can sustain less theological fright than the unified witness of the prescriptive corpus of NT, or the New Testament, to baptism as a distinctively ecclesiastical rite. I have given the verses here. All of these verses, like 1 Corinthians 12, Galatians 3, Colossians, 1 Peter, and look at the discussion. We said this is church ordinance, ecclesiastical rite, right? We already discussed. And now you have one passage that comes and says, oh, there is one baptism in the New Testament that is not done under or in the context of a local church. Now, this is not to say that Acts 8 may be ignored as superfluous, but it does suggest that the weight of prescriptive material is on the side of baptism as church ordinance. Yes, there are a lot of verses, and it's not a merely Christian ordinance. So there are, I said, we are not rejecting the passage, but we have enough verses in the New Testament to teach us that this is church ordinance. It is not merely a Christian ordinance. Now, let's look into this passage again as an incomplete descriptive passage. Acts 8 does not contain enough information to make an informed assessment. It doesn't, if you really look into the details of Acts 8, you don't have much detail. We are quietly, simply unaware of many salient details of this incident. Questions like this: was the eunuch baptized alone, or did others join him? Question number one. Bible is silent. Luke did not explain every details there. Was only eunuch baptized, or other people also were there? Could it be, we have a tradition, church tradition suggests that this event marked the initial organization of the church in Africa? That's what church tradition actually tells. How church started in Africa was by, this is the beginning. We don't know actually. And to radically adjust ecclesiology based on the absence of contextual details seems at best imprudent. It is not wise. But I have something more to add here. As formative descriptive passage, normative value of Acts for the modern church is in question. Now, look at this. As a miracle working evangelist, who? Philip. Right now, we don't consider who is Philip. Think about who is this man. If you really know that he was one of the men chosen by the Jerusalem church, one of the 7 men chosen, and Philip was one among them, right? Now, he was a miracle working evangelist. Philip clearly has no contemporary equivalent. There's no contemporary equivalent. Philip was an evangelist. That is a word used for. As an evangelist, Philip's contemporary equivalent is debated. Calvin, as we noted, restricted the role of the evangelist to the first century. That's Calvin's thinking. He thinks that this miracle-working evangelists are only in the first century. We don't have that by his explanation of Ephesians chapter 4. Further, now, think this way. If Philip was an evangelist in the sense of a modern missionary church planter, right? If Philip was an evangelist in the sense of modern missionary church planter, it follows that he was baptizing at the behest of the local church and with a view to the establishment of another local church. What I'm saying is, if that is the case, Philip was sent by Jerusalem church for evangelism, right? As a church planter, as a missionary, to Samaria, to other places. And we know that he baptizes, or he preached the gospel in many places. So yes, Philip was an evangelist sent by the church. So he was doing at the behest of a local church that sent him. Just like that, imagine this way. Here is a missionary who goes to an African jungle. The missionary is sent because all the missionaries are sent by a local church. Period. Otherwise, they're not a missionary. Right? He's sent by the local church. And so when they send, that means they are sending him with authority to plant a new church. And he goes to an African jungle. And that is the first time, he preached the gospel that someone is saved. And if he baptizes that person, that baptism was not invalid because he is doing under the authority of a local church. There is a church behind him, sending him with the authority to work on behalf of that local church, preaching the message of the local church. That is the way we have to take it. Of course, we don't have all the details here. At least we should know Philip was part of the church in Jerusalem, for clearly we know. And then he has gone to other places. So we don't know the details. When the church sent him, how did the apostles send him? We don't know all the details, but at least we know for sure Philip was the member of the church in Jerusalem. That is for sure. And if that is the case, then he has gone as the representatives of this church, and that's what it happens. We don't know the rest of the stories in Acts 8, right? So because we don't know the rest of the stories, now we assume we can do anything. No, there are other passages in the scripture which is very clear that it is church ordinance. While the problem of the incident of Philip and Ethiopian eunuch is surely a thorny one, it is doubtful that modern church should appeal to this story as a sufficient reason to abandon the idea of baptism as a distinctively church ordinance. At its best, it offers a window to the procedure for pioneer church planting. That's what Acts chapter 8 actually says. So I don't have a problem in looking at, and still I see that it is biblical, and I don't have any issue with that a missionary goes to a place where there are no Christians, and he's starting a local church there by baptizing the first convert. Absolutely right. But what I'm saying, this is church ordinance. Should be done in the context of local church, because the greatest institution that Jesus established, or he's building now, is not any other organization, purely his church. That's very important.